Have you ever wondered what it feels like to stand at the very edge of the sky, where the air is so thin it whispers of ancient secrets, and the silence is so profound it feels like the breath of the earth itself? 50 million years ago, our planet witnessed a cataclysmic embrace. Two massive tectonic plates, India and Eurasia, collided with such unimaginable force that the crust of the earth buckled, twisted, and rose toward the heavens. This was the birth of the Himalayas, a jagged crown of stone and ice that changed the world forever. From this violent encounter emerged the Tibetan Plateau, a vast frozen fortress known as the Roof of the World. Stretching across nearly 1 million square miles, this is the highest and largest plateau on our planet. It is a land of extremes, where the sun burns with a fierce intensity through the crystal-clear atmosphere, and the winds howl with the fury of 1,000 ghosts. To the uninitiated, it may seem like a barren wasteland, a place where life should not exist. But look closer. Among the fluttering prayer flags and the shimmering peaks of Wild Tibet, a delicate balance endures. This is a spiritual journey of survival, a place where ancient traditions are etched into the very soil, and where every creature, from the majestic snow leopard to the humble nomad, plays a part in a grand, eternal cycle. Welcome to the Tibetan Plateau, the third pole of our world, and the final frontier of the soul. As we descend from the frozen peaks toward the Ki-Chu River Valley, the rugged wilderness gives way to a city that feels like a bridge between heaven and earth. This is Lhasa, the place of the gods. At over 11,000 feet above sea level, the air here remains crisp and thin, yet it is thick with the scent of burning juniper and the rhythmic chanting of thousands of souls. For anyone embarking on a spiritual journey, Lhasa is not just a destination. It is the ultimate sanctuary of ancient traditions. Rising like a red and white fortress from the summit of Red Mountain is the Potala Palace. This architectural marvel, with its 13 stories and over 1,000 rooms, was once the winter residence of the Dalai Lamas. Even for the most seasoned traveler, the first sight of the Potala against a piercingly blue sky is enough to take one's breath away. It stands as a silent witness to centuries of history, a stone manifestation of the roof of the world's enduring power. Each golden roof tile reflects the high-altitude sun, casting a glow that can be seen for miles across the Tibetan Plateau. A short distance away lies the Jokhang Temple, the spiritual heart of the city. Here, the atmosphere shifts from the regal silence of the palace to a vibrant, living devotion. The Barkhor street circuit surrounding the temple is a sea of movement. Pilgrims from the furthest corners of Wild Tibet arrive here, some having prostrated themselves for hundreds of miles to reach these sacred doors. You can hear the rhythmic thud slide of their wooden hand protectors hitting the stones, a sound that has echoed through these streets for over 1,300 years. To the elderly residents of Lhasa, these rituals are as essential as the air they breathe. They walk the circuit with prayer wheels in hand, their faces etched with the lines of 1,000 stories, yet their eyes remain bright with a quiet, unshakable peace. In a world that is rapidly changing, the devotion found in the heart of the Himalayas remains a constant. It is a reminder that, while empires rise and fall, the spirit of the Tibetan Plateau is carved from something much deeper than stone. It is a testament to a culture that chose harmony over conquest and inner silence over the noise of the modern world. As the sun begins to dip behind the mountains, bathing the Potala in a deep crimson hue, the city prepares for the cold. The bells of the temple ring out, their vibrations traveling through the thin air, calling to the spirits of the ancestors. This is Lhasa, place where the veil between the physical and the divine is at its thinnest, and where every heartbeat is a prayer for all living beings. To understand the true soul of Wild Tibet, one must look beyond the temples and into the heart of the windswept wilderness. Here, amidst the frost-covered grasslands of the Tibetan Plateau, lives a creature that defines the very meaning of resilience: the yak. To the local people, the yak is not merely an animal. It is the Noor, the precious jewel that makes human life possible on the roof of the world. Imagine a beast built like a mountain, draped in a coat of thick, shaggy hair that reaches almost to the ground. The wild ancestors of these majestic creatures roam the desolate northern plains, surviving in temperatures that can plummet to 40 degrees below zero. Evolution has gifted them with a heart and lungs significantly larger than those of cattle found at sea level, allowing them to thrive where other mammals would gasp for breath. They are the undisputed kings of the Himalayas, sure-footed on treacherous ice and unbothered by the most ferocious blizzards. For the nomadic families who have called this plateau home for millennia, the yak is the ultimate provider. Every part of the animal is a gift. Their rich, creamy milk is churned into golden butter, an essential source of calories, and the fuel for the countless flickering lamps that illuminate the monasteries. Their coarse wool is woven into heavy black tents that provide a portable sanctuary against the biting winds, while their hides are fashioned into boots and bags that last a lifetime. In a land where trees are a rarity, even their dried dung becomes a vital resource, providing the only fuel for the fires that warm the hearths of the ancient traditions. There is a profound beauty in the relationship between the nomad and his herd. It is a bond forged in the crucible of survival. During the short, vibrant summers, you can see the herds grazing across the endless green steppes, their dark silhouettes contrasting against the turquoise sky. The herdsmen sing ancient folk songs to guide them, a melody that carries across the silence of the high altitude, connecting the past to the present on this spiritual journey. However, the world is shifting. The wild yak, once numbering in the millions, now faces the quiet threat of a changing climate and shrinking habitats. As the permafrost softens and the boundaries of human settlement expand, the survival of these iconic giants hangs in a delicate balance. Yet to see a line of yaks trekking over a high mountain pass, their breath huffing like steam engines in the cold air, is to see the personification of the Tibetan Plateau itself, rugged, untamable, and fiercely enduring. They are the living pulse of the high country, the silent sentinels who remind us that strength is not found in speed, but in the steady, unwavering ability to keep moving forward, one frozen step at a time. High above the grazing herds of yaks, where the cliffs become vertical spires of limestone and shale, lives a creature so elusive that many locals believe it is a spirit of the mountain. This is the snow leopard, the ghost of the mountains. In the thin, biting air of the Himalayas, this apex predator reigns supreme, moving with a ghostly grace that defies the laws of gravity. To catch even a glimpse of this magnificent cat in Wild Tibet is considered a blessing, a rare window into the most secretive corner of the roof of the world. The snow leopard is a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering. Its coat, a dense mosaic of smoky gray and black rosettes, provides the perfect camouflage against the sun-dappled rocks and patches of ice. Its paws are enormous, acting as natural snowshoes that distribute its weight evenly across the treacherous drifts. But perhaps its most striking feature is its tail, long, thick, fur-covered rudder that provides balance during high-speed chases down near vertical slopes. On the frozen heights of the Tibetan Plateau, where a single misstep means certain death, this tail is the leopard's lifeline. Life here is a game of extreme patience. Food is scarce, and the leopard must often patrol a territory covering hundreds of square miles. Its primary prey, The blue sheep, or baral, are masters of the crags themselves. To survive, the leopard must become one with the stone. It can sit motionless for hours, its golden eyes fixed on a target, waiting for the precise moment to strike. When the chase begins, it is a breathtaking display of power, a blur of grey fur leaping across chasms and sliding down scree slopes at dizzying speeds. For the people of the plateau, the snow leopard is more than just a predator. It is a vital part of their ancient traditions and folklore. Many believe these cats are the guardians of the sacred peaks, protectors of the hidden valleys. Yet, this spiritual journey of the leopard is fraught with danger. As the climate warms and the tree line creeps higher, their mountain stronghold is shrinking. Conflict with local herders over livestock occasionally arises, and the shadow of poaching still haunts the high ridges. Despite these challenges, there is hope. Conservation efforts, often led by the very communities that share this land, are working to protect the ghost. Protecting the snow leopard means protecting the entire ecosystem of the Himalayas. As long as this silent hunter continues to roam the ridges, the soul of the Tibetan Plateau remains intact. To hear its rare, raspy call echoing through a moonlit canyon is to be reminded that there are still mysteries in this world that we have yet to fully uncover, and that the wildest hearts belong to the highest places. As we descend from the jagged haunts of the leopard and move toward the lush, hidden valleys of Nyingchi, the landscape of the Tibetan Plateau undergoes a startling transformation. Here, the rugged grey stone gives way to ancient forests of cypress and pine. In this emerald corner of Wild Tibet, a different kind of survivor reigns. He is loud, social, and possesses an intelligence that bridges the gap between the animal kingdom and the human world. The Tibetan macaque. The Tibetan macaque is the largest of its kind, a heavy-set primate built to endure the high-altitude chill. With a thick, sandy brown coat and a face full of expressive character, these monkeys are the true elders of the forest. But their story is not just one of biological adaptation. It is a fascinating chapter in the ancient traditions of coexistence. Thousands of years ago, these primates began to venture out from the deep woods, drawn by the smell of barley and maize from the small farming villages tucked into the mountain folds. In many parts of the world, such a situation would lead to conflict. But on the roof of the world, the philosophy of the spiritual journey changes everything. The local Tibetan villagers, guided by their deep-seated Buddhist faith, view these thieves with a surprising level of compassion. They see the macaques not as pests, but as sentient beings sharing the same harsh environment. It is not uncommon to see an elderly grandmother sitting on her porch, tossing a few grains of highland barley to a watchful male macaque. This silent pact, food in exchange for peace, has created a unique symbiotic bond that has lasted for generations. The social structure of the macaque troop is as complex as any human society. Within the canopy of the Himalayas, they maintain strict hierarchies, solve disputes with vocal negotiations, and display deep maternal bonds. Watching a mother macaque huddle with her infant during a sudden mountain rainstorm evokes a powerful sense of empathy. It reminds us that across the Tibetan Plateau, the struggle to protect the next generation is a universal language. However, this relationship is delicate. As tourism increases and modern life encroaches on these secluded valleys, the natural behavior of the macaques is being tested. Yet, the core of the ancient traditions remains, a belief that all life is sacred and interconnected. The Tibetan macaque stands as a symbol of this tolerance. They are the playful, boisterous reminders that even in the most unforgiving terrain, there is always room for a little neighborly kindness. Their presence adds a layer of warmth to the cold heights, proving that the heart of Wild Tibet is large enough to hold both the silent leopard and the chattering monkey in its majestic embrace. In the vast, open expanses of the Tibetan Plateau, Where the horizon stretches until it touches the heavens, you might expect only the giants to survive. But look beneath your feet, among the low-lying shrubs and alpine grasses, and you will find the most industrious resident of Wild Tibet. This is the plateau pika, small, round ball of fur that looks more like a hamster than its cousin, the rabbit. Though tiny, this creature is the unsung hero of the roof of the world. The pika is a marvel of high-altitude living. Unlike many other small mammals, they do not hibernate. Instead, they spend the fleeting, sun-drenched summers of the Himalayas working with a frantic urgency. They are the plateau's gardeners, harvesting grasses and herbs, then spreading them out on flat stones to dry in the intense solar radiation. These haystacks are their life support, stored deep within their burrows to provide sustenance during the long, brutal winters when the world above is buried in white. For the elderly observers who have lived on this land for decades, the pika is a symbol of tireless work and foresight. But their importance goes far deeper than their charming appearance. The pika is a keystone species. The intricate tunnel systems they dig serve as the primary drainage for the plateau's soil, preventing erosion and helping the delicate alpine flowers to bloom. Furthermore, their burrows provide ready-made homes for a variety of birds and lizards, but cannot dig for themselves. On this spiritual journey, the pika reminds us that no life is too small to be significant. However, the pika's life is one of constant vigilance. They are the primary source of food for almost every predator on the Tibetan Plateau, from the soaring eagles to the stealthy Tibetan fox. Their high-pitched whistles, used to warn the colony of an approaching shadow, are a constant soundtrack to the wilderness. They live on a knife's edge, yet they continue to thrive, their population supporting the entire web of life in Wild Tibet. In recent years, misunderstandings led to efforts to reduce pika populations, fearing they competed with livestock for grass. But the ancient traditions of the locals knew better. They understood that where the pika disappears, the land becomes brittle and the predators vanish. Today, science is finally catching up to that ancient wisdom. To watch a pika scurrying through the golden light of a plateau afternoon is to see the engine of the ecosystem in motion. They are the tiny architects of the roof of the world, proving that even in the harshest cradle of nature, it is often the smallest hands or paw that hold the world together. While the pika scurries below, a massive shadow sweeps across the sun-drenched plains of the Tibetan Plateau. Looking up into the endless blue, you might see a silhouette that commands the sky like no other. This is the bearded vulture, known to the world as the lammergeier, but to the people of Wild Tibet, it is a sacred messenger. With a wingspan reaching nearly 9 feet, these giants are the undisputed masters of the high-altitude winds, soaring effortlessly over the jagged peaks of the Himalayas. The bearded vulture is unlike any other bird of prey. Its appearance is striking, a piercing yellow eye surrounded by a crimson ring, and a tuft of black bristles under its beak that gives it its bearded name. But it is their diet that truly sets them apart. While other scavengers fight over flesh, the bearded vulture waits. It has evolved to consume what others leave behind: bones. Over 70% of its diet consists of bone marrow, processed by stomach acids so powerful they can dissolve solid calcium in days. On the roof of the world, where resources are scarce, nothing can be wasted. When a bone is too large to swallow, this bird demonstrates a remarkable intelligence. It will carry the bone high into the air and drop it onto flat rocks below, shattering it into manageable pieces. This ritual, repeated for millennia, has earned them the reputation of being the ultimate recyclers of the ecosystem. In the harsh reality of the Tibetan Plateau, they ensure that the energy of the fallen returns to the cycle of life. For the elderly who follow the ancient traditions, the presence of these vultures is deeply symbolic.
They are not viewed with fear or disgust, but with a profound sense of respect. They are the sky dancers, essential players in the spiritual journey of all living beings.
Their ability to transform the hardest remains of death into life-sustaining energy is a living metaphor for the Buddhist path of transformation and transcendence. As they glide on the thermal currents of the Himalayas, their rust-colored feathers, often stained by iron-rich dust, glow like embers in the setting sun. They remind us that in Wild Tibet, beauty is often found in the most unexpected places. They are the silent cleaners of the mountains, the guardians of the high passes, and a testament to the fact that on the roof of the world, even the end of one journey is simply the beginning of another. In the heart of the Tibetan Plateau, the rugged terrain occasionally opens up to reveal sights that seem more like a dream than reality. Scattered across this high-altitude desert are vast, shimmering bodies of water known as the Holy Lakes. For the people of Wild Tibet, these are not just geographical features, they are the dwellings of deities and the mirrors of the soul. Among them, Lake Namtso and Lake Yangdrok stand as the crowning jewels of the roof of the world. Lake Namtso, the heavenly lake, sits at a staggering altitude of over 15,000 feet. Surrounded by the snow-capped Nyenchen Tunglha Mountains, its turquoise waters are so clear they seem to pull the sky down into the earth. Standing on its shores, the air is so pure that the distant peaks feel close enough to touch. For the elderly pilgrims who have traveled for weeks to reach this place, the sight of Namtso is the culmination of a lifelong spiritual journey. They walk the Korah, sacred circumambulation of the lake, counting their beads and chanting mantras, believing that these waters can wash away the burdens of a lifetime. To the south lies Lake Yandrok, a serpentine wonder with water that shifts colors from deep sapphire to bright emerald, depending on the angle of the sun. Unlike the vastness of Namtso, Yamdrok winds through the valleys like a dragon made of light. According to ancient traditions, if this lake ever dried up, the spirit of the Tibetan Plateau would vanish with it. It is a vital sanctuary for migratory birds and a source of life for the surrounding nomadic communities. These lakes are the lifeblood of the Himalayas. Fed by the melting glaciers, they act as massive reservoirs that regulate the climate of the entire region. Yet, they are fragile. As the global temperature rises, the glaciers that feed them are retreating at an alarming rate. The elders look at the receding shorelines with a quiet concern, sensing a shift in the balance they have respected for centuries. As the sun sets over the water, the surface becomes a liquid gold, reflecting the fluttering prayer flags that line the banks. In this moment of stillness, the noise of the modern world feels like a distant memory. The sacred lakes of the Tibetan Plateau remind us that there is a profound power in reflection, both in the water and in the mind. They remain silent witnesses to the eternity of Wild Tibet, teaching us that the most beautiful things in life are often the ones we must tread most lightly upon. In the silence of the high ridges far above the turquoise lakes, we encounter the most profound and misunderstood ritual of the Tibetan Plateau. For a Western observer, it may seem jarring, but through the lens of ancient traditions, it is a beautiful act of final charity. This is the sky burial, or jator, the giving of alms to the birds. In the heart of Wild Tibet, death is not treated as a tragedy to be hidden, but as a transition to be embraced with open hands. The philosophy behind this ceremony is rooted deeply in the spiritual journey of Tibetan Buddhism. The people of the roof of the world believe that once the soul has departed, the body is merely an empty vessel, a shell left behind by a traveler. To bury it in the frozen, rocky earth of the Himalayas is difficult, and to burn it requires wood that is scarce at these altitudes.
Instead, the deceased is offered to the vultures, the sky dancers we met before.
As the first light of dawn touches the peaks, the ceremony begins in a secluded, sacred spot. There is no weeping, only the rhythmic chanting of the lamas, reminding those present of the impermanence of all things. When the vultures descend, they are welcomed as sacred messengers. By giving one's physical remains to nourish these birds, the individual performs one last act of kindness, sustaining another life as their own comes to an end. It is the ultimate expression of the cycle of life on the Tibetan Plateau. For the elderly who have spent their lives in these mountains, there is a deep comfort in this tradition. It reflects a world where man and nature are not separate, but part of a single, flowing energy. They see the vultures soaring back into the clouds and believe that their loved ones are being carried toward the heavens, returning to the vastness from which they came. In our modern world, we often struggle to face the reality of our own end. But here, on the roof of the world, death is seen with a clarity that is both humbling and liberating. The sky burial teaches us that nothing is truly lost. It is only transformed. As the wind carries the scent of incense across the silent plateau, we are reminded that in Wild Tibet, the most sacred act is to let go, allowing the spirit to soar free, while the body returns to the wild heart of the mountains. While the smoke of incense drifts from the funeral pyres below, a different kind of miracle is taking place in the skies above the Himalayas. High above the cruising altitude of most light aircraft, a V-shaped formation of birds cuts through the freezing, oxygen-deprived air. These are the bar-headed geese, the champion mountaineers of the avian world. Their annual journey across the Tibetan Plateau is one of the most incredible feats of endurance in Wild Tibet, a testament to the sheer will of life to overcome the impossible. Every spring, these geese leave the warm lowlands of India and Nepal, driven by an ancient instinct to breed in the remote, high-altitude wetlands of the roof of the world. To get there, they must fly directly over the world's tallest peaks. While human climbers struggle for every breath at the death zone of Mount Everest, these birds flap their wings with rhythmic precision at 29,000 feet. At this height, the air is so thin that it contains only 1/3 of the oxygen found at sea level, and the temperature is cold enough to freeze water in seconds. The bar-headed goose is a biological marvel. Their blood is uniquely adapted to bind oxygen more efficiently than any other bird, and their capillaries are so dense that they can pump fuel to their flight muscles, even in the most brutal conditions. For the elderly who watch them pass overhead from the valleys of the Tibetan Plateau, the geese are a source of immense inspiration. They represent the lungta, or wind horse, a symbol of soul strength and the ability to overcome hardship. Their arrival at the sacred lakes signifies the turning of the seasons. In the marshes of Wild Tibet, they build their nests and raise their young under the intense mountain sun. It is a brief, frantic window of life before the autumn winds return. When the first heavy snows begin to dust the plains, the geese once again take to the sky, their haunting calls echoing off the granite walls of the Himalayas. Their spiritual journey is a reminder that the boundaries we see, with massive mountain ranges and the thinning atmosphere, are not barriers, but challenges to be met with grace. The bar-headed goose proves that even the most fragile creature can conquer the giants, if it has the heart to fly. As they disappear into the clouds, they leave behind a sense of wonder, a lingering hope that as long as the geese return to the Tibetan Plateau, the ancient rhythm of the world remains unbroken. Deep in the northern reaches of the Tibetan Plateau, in a vast and desolate wilderness known as the Changtang, lives a creature that embodies the grace of Wild Tibet, the chiru, or Tibetan antelope. These are the golden spirits of the plains, animals that seem to run not on the ground, but on the wind itself. With the ability to reach speeds of 50 miles per hour in the thin air of the roof of the world, they are among the fastest mammals on the planet. The chiru is a survivor of the highest order. They live at altitudes where few other herbivores can graze, protected by a coat of wool so fine and warm that it became their greatest curse. Known as Shatouche, or the King of Wolves, this downy undercoat was once so coveted by the fashion elite that the chiru were hunted to the very brink of extinction. In the late 20th century, their numbers plummeted, leaving the silent valleys of the Himalayas haunted by the memory of their thundering hooves. But the story of the chiru is also one of a miraculous spiritual journey toward recovery. Thanks to the fierce protection of the local communities and the ancient traditions of the Tibetan people, who believe that to kill a chiru is to wound the soul of the mountain, their populations have begun to heal. Today, to see a herd of several thousand chiru moving across the golden grass is a sight that brings tears to the eyes of the elders who remember the silent years. Their life cycle is a drama of epic proportions. Every summer, the females embark on a mysterious migration, traveling hundreds of miles to secret calving grounds in the far north. Scientists still do not fully understand why they choose these specific, harsh locations, but it is a journey of unwavering faith. Meanwhile, the males, distinguished by their magnificent sword-like horns that can reach 2 feet in length, engage in fierce battles for dominance. These clashes are not just for show. They are a test of strength and spirit in the harshest cradle of nature. The chiru reminds us of the fragility of Wild Tibet. They are the barometers of the plateau's health. As the permafrost shifts and the climate changes, their ancient migration routes are under threat, yet they continue to run. In their defiant speed and their quiet recovery, the chiru represents the resilience of the Tibetan Plateau. They are the golden thread that sews the earth to the sky, a living proof that even after the darkest winter of greed, spring can return to the roof of the world. As we leave the sun-scorched plains of the chiru and move back toward the rugged tree lines where the Himalayas meet the clouds, we encounter a creature of immense power and quiet mystery. This is the Tibetan blue bear, often called the Tibetan black bear. To the outside world, this animal is so elusive it is rarely filmed, but in the folklore of Wild Tibet, it is a central figure, a shaggy dark shadow that roams the high-altitude forests and rocky outcrops of the Tibetan Plateau. Unlike the social macaques or the herding yaks, the bear is a creature of solitude. It lives a life of quiet contemplation, wandering through the alpine meadows in search of its next meal. Its coat is a deep, jet black, often marked with a distinctive white crescent on its chest, a moon that shines against the darkness of its fur. This bear is a master of the vertical world, capable of scaling cliffs and trees with a nimble grace that belies its heavy frame. In the ancient traditions of the plateau, the bear is often seen as a mountain hermit, a being that has chosen the path of isolation on its own spiritual journey. The life of a Tibetan bear is governed by the brutal cycle of the seasons on the roof of the world. During the short, lush summer, they are opportunistic eaters. You might find one digging frantically into a pika burrow or stripping the bark from a mountain juniper to find grubs. But as the first autumn frosts begin to turn the grass to gold, the bear feels the urgent call of the coming white. They must consume enough calories to survive a winter that can last 6 months, a feat of biological endurance that few other large mammals can match. For the elderly who live in the remote mountain hamlets, the bear is a neighbor to be respected, not feared. They tell stories of Kimothe Great Bear, who guards the hidden caves where ancient masters once meditated. There is a sense of shared hardship between the bear and the human. Both must navigate the thinning air and the freezing nights of the Himalayas. However, as the forests shrink and the climate warms, the bears find themselves venturing closer to human settlements in search of food. This overlap is a delicate test of the ancient traditions of harmony. Protecting the bear's habitat is essential for the health of the entire Tibetan Plateau. Without this solitary wanderer, the high forests would lose their most powerful guardian. As the bear retreats into its den for the winter, its slow, deep heartbeat mirrors the pulse of the mountain itself, waiting, breathing, and enduring until the sun returns to Wild Tibet. As we stand upon the high ridges, looking out over the breathtaking expanse of the Tibetan Plateau, it is easy to believe that this fortress of rock and ice is eternal. But beneath the surface of the third pole, a silent and invisible crisis is unfolding. This is the realm of the permafrost, the frozen ground that has acted as the foundation for the roof of the world for tens of thousands of years. Today, that foundation is beginning to soften, and with it, the very soul of Wild Tibet is being tested. The Tibetan Plateau holds the largest store of frozen water outside of the Arctic and Antarctic. This ice is not just a geological feature. It is a giant frozen sponge that regulates the lifeblood of an entire continent. The glaciers of the Himalayas feed the great rivers, the Yangtze, the Mekong, the Indus, and the Ganges, providing water for nearly 2 billion people. To the elders who have lived their lives by the rhythms of these waters, the river is a sacred gift, a physical manifestation of a spiritual journey that connects the mountains to the sea. However, the temperature on the plateau is rising twice as fast as the global average. As the permafrost thaws, the sacred waters we explored earlier are changing. Some lakes are swelling to dangerous levels as glaciers melt too quickly, while other ancient springs, once the lifeblood of nomadic camps, are drying up and vanishing forever. The ancient traditions of the Tibetan people have always taught that the earth is a delicate balance, but that balance is now being pushed to its limit. The melting ice does more than just shift the water. It destabilizes the land itself. Ancient monasteries, perched for centuries on solid ground, are seeing their walls crack as the earth beneath them turns to mud. The migratory paths of the chiru and the nesting grounds of the bar-headed geese are shifting, forced to adapt to a landscape that is becoming unrecognizable. For the elderly herders, it is a heartbreaking sight to see the pastures they have grazed for generations turn into marshlands or dust bowls. This is the great challenge of our time on the Tibetan Plateau. The roof is leaking. But in the face of this uncertainty, the spirit of the people remains as resilient as the snow leopard. They are turning to their ancient traditions of conservation, working with scientists to monitor the ice and find ways to adapt. They understand that to save the plateau is to save the water of the world. As the sun reflects off the shrinking glaciers, it serves as a wake-up call, to reminder that the beauty of Wild Tibet is a fragile mirror, and it is our collective responsibility to ensure it does not shatter. As the long shadows of the Himalayas stretch across the golden grasslands, we find ourselves at the center of the most enduring human story on the Tibetan Plateau. Far from the bustling streets of Lhasa, the heartbeat of Wild Tibet is found in the rhythmic daily life of the nomads. For thousands of years, these resilient families have lived in a dance with the seasons, moving their herds of yak and sheep across the roof of the world. Theirs is a life of radical simplicity, guided by ancient traditions that prioritize the spirit over the material. The day of a nomad begins before the sun even touches the horizon. In the pre-dawn chill, the air inside the black yak hair tent is thick with the comforting scent of butter tea and smoldering juniper. An elderly grandmother, her face a map of 1,000 mountain winters, hums a mantra as she churns milk. For her, every movement is a prayer, every task an act of devotion in her lifelong spiritual journey. Outside, the men move through the frost, their breath rising like ghosts in the air as they check on the calves. There is no urgency here, only a deep, steady connection to the natural clock of the earth. Life on the Tibetan Plateau is not for the faint of heart. The weather can turn from a sun-drenched afternoon to a blinding blizzard in a matter of minutes. Yet, the nomads do not see the environment as an enemy to be conquered. Instead, they view it as a temperamental but generous provider. They take only what they need: milk, wool, and the occasional dung for fuel, leaving no trace of their presence behind. This philosophy of leaving the earth as you found it is perhaps the most important lesson they offer to our modern, consuming world. As evening falls, the family gathers around the central hearth. This is where the stories of the Snow Leopard and the mountain deities are passed down to the next generation. Even as some young people move to the cities, many return, drawn by an invisible thread to the freedom of the high plains. They are the guardians of a culture that understands the true value of silence and the wealth found in a clear blue sky. The nomadic soul is the living bridge between the wild animals of the plateau and the spiritual heights of the monasteries. They are the human face of Wild Tibet, a people whose kindness is as vast as the landscape they inhabit. As the stars begin to pierce the dark velvet of the night sky, we realize that while the world below may be filled with noise, here, on the roof of the world, the most profound truths are still whispered by the wind. As our journey across the Tibetan Plateau comes to a close, we find ourselves standing once more at the edge of the sky. We have witnessed the violent birth of the Himalayas, felt the silent gaze of the snow leopard, and walked alongside the nomads whose lives are a living prayer. This is not just a place on a map, it is a testament to the endurance of life. The roof of the world is a mirror for our own humanity, a reminder that we are at our best when we live in harmony with the wild, not in opposition to it. But the silence of Wild Tibet is no longer a guarantee. The softening permafrost, the receding glaciers, and the thinning herds tell us that even this fortress is vulnerable. The spiritual journey of the Tibetan people teaches us that all things are interconnected. A change in the temperature of these high peaks eventually reaches the valleys of the great rivers, affecting billions of lives. To protect the Tibetan Plateau is not just an act of conservation for a distant land. It is an act of survival for our collective future. We leave this land with a sense of profound gratitude. We take with us the wisdom of the ancient traditions, the belief that every breath is sacred, and every living being is a traveler on the same great path. The ghost of the mountains still prowls the ridges, the bar-headed geese still conquer the thin air, and the nomadic tents still stand against the wind. The heart of the world is still beating, high and strong, in the thin air of the east. As the sun sets, casting a final golden glow over the prayer flags, we ask ourselves, what will we do to ensure this light never fades? Perhaps the first step is simply to remember that there is still a place where the earth touches the heavens and where the soul can breathe as deep as the mountains. A message from the wild, if this journey into the heart of the Tibetan Plateau moved you, or if it reminded you of the fragile beauty of our planet. Please share this story with someone you love. We read every comment and cherish every soul who joins us in our mission to document the wonders of Wild Tibet. Let us protect the roof of the world, together. Don't forget to subscribe to join our next expedition into the unknown. Until then, keep your eyes on the horizon.